Hello, and welcome to the Pixelated Sausage Show. Hi. How is everyone doing? Hopefully, well. I'm, of course, your host, Mark Kuznez, and if you're watching the video version of this, I am experimenting. My hair is long enough to the point where I can put it into a very stupid-looking ponytail. It may be a type of ponytail that is popular in some. I don't know. It just is me happily being able to tie my hair back to any degree so that I can basically just throw it into this, what you are seeing, instead of having to wait for it to get oily enough to the point where it just kind of does what I want it to do. I have yet to find any kind of product, not that I've been experimenting because I don't know where to start, what to do, that can get my hair post-washing less poofy and fluffy, because my hair out of the wash is just this pussy, wavy mess of a thing, and I hate it. I look like, I don't know. The closest I feel like example would be Mel Gibson in the Lethal Weapon movies. And I think in one of them, he had a ponytail like what I'm doing right now. And he looked pretty stupid. But I think his was more all of the hair, and I'm just doing the top. Anyway, I probably look like an idiot, but I feel like I look like less of an idiot than I could, so this is what we're doing as we continue to see about growing this hair out and all of that. I know it's very, very exciting. You're all very happy to hear me talking about my hair. Hair is what you say. Hair for hair talk on this here podcast. Pixelated Hair Show. Yay. You're welcome. But that is where we're at. I need some nicer hair ties because I just looked on various sites. I looked at Claire's. I saw this little fake pop can. Soda pop can. It's not. You don't call it a pop can. It's this. I'm covering the thing. It's just. You don't call them a pop can. I don't call them a soda can. I mean, I guess you call them a soda can. But I'm trying to think of what the hell you call these now. Can I get a can of pop? I guess I just call it, oh, yeah, you want a can of pop. Whatever. But I saw that on the website and it had all these colorful little hair ties in it. So I went to my local Claire's. I have one at my local mall, which is very, very close to me. And when I got there, I asked the person working there, the only person working there was no one else in the store either, perusing. I asked them, do you have this can, this pop can like thing with hair ties in it? She said, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. And we have this 3-for-2 deal. You can get this other one that has butterfly clips, which I want to put some butterfly clips in my hair. I had a few butterfly clips way back in the day when I had a big beard that a few lady friends put into my beard, and then I just kept them in my beard every now and again. I just put them in there, and I wouldn't mind putting those in my hair. Can't fit them in my mustache. And they'd be annoying in the mustache. In the beard, fine. In the mustache, no. But she tried to sell me on the buy 3 for the price of 2 deal, because that was the last day. It was going to be gone after that day. And I was like, no. But when I saw how small the bands are, they're basically ring sized for a adult thin finger. I have, I think, what would be considered more feminine lady like finger sizes, ring sizes. And I don't think it's going to come across on the camera, but I have large hands with thin, long fingers. Imagine what I could do with them. But when I saw the can and how small they were, I was like, oh, this wasn't what I thought they were. I thought they were larger. I thought they were the traditional ones that I think of as hair ties that I don't even know if they still are popular or widely used. The ones that are traditionally just black and then they have like the metal thing connecting them. I don't know. Those are hair ties, right? But I was thinking about something that I could wear as a kind of bracelet and put in my hair when need be. I don't know what that was. But these are not. They're very thin, small, flimsy rubber bands if you expand them too much. I've learned that already. But they get the job done for my needs in the moment. But I would like some just colorful, regular hair ties that are cloth or whatever they're made of. I didn't think I was going to go on talking about my hair for this long, but I felt like I had to acknowledge it at least at the start for video listeners because my hair looks different and maybe no one else, probably no one else will notice, but I sure as hell do. And I'm looking at myself talking right now and I'm like, oh God, please let this be fine. But I thought getting away from all the hair talk, because that's not what we're here for. We're not here for hair. Hair. Before I get to what I've been playing, just a little bit, outside of the streaming stuff, of course, finish Kingdom Come Deliverance. Oh boy. Get excited for whenever those Itch at the Backlog episodes dropped. And then I played... What did I follow that up with? It was a Cozy Dredge. Spoilers. Had a really good time with that. But you'll have to learn more about that later. And then I moved on to currently Contra Rogue Corps because I couldn't think of anything else and I'm an idiot. Anywho, I thought before I get to what I've been playing, something to talk about. Because there's been some news, but nothing I really want to talk about. Some more studio closures. Not great. So you've heard that elsewhere already anyway. Listen to some kind of daily news show. You know all the details. But I wanted to take this time as we are less than a week away from the Switch 2 launch, which is insane to think about. It feels crazy to think about that fact. Why is that thing going off? Get that light away from me. Stop spinning the AMAZON device. I figured with the Switch 2 less than a week away now, why not talk about our last minute Switch 2 wishes and predictions for the rest of 2025, for the entirety of what's left of 2025. So we know that we have Mario Kart World in June to go along with the launch, of course. Then Donkey Kong Bonanza in July. And we recently got the release date for Pokemon Legends ZNA, Z-Day, however it's pronounced, for October. That leaves, of the announced games we know of that are supposedly in 2025, and I'm only going through first party and second party stuff. This is just Nintendo stuff, whether it be developed or published. That leaves us with, and I may be missing something. I'm also not counting, okay, what is it called? The Tur thing that comes out at launch, right? That has to come out at launch. Who cares? Whatever, $10, blah, 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 blah. But what I believe that leaves us with is Kirby Air Riders, Metroid Prime 4, and Dragon Drive. And looking at those, I feel like, first and foremost, I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a September release. That just feels right. And then Dragon Drive, I think, could be August, but it can also be in July. It could be late June. It could come at any point in time because it is a smaller game. And I don't think it's the kind of game you make a big deal about. I also think it's a game that should come out sooner than later because it is the main tech demo for the mouse functionality of the Joy-Con controllers. It is the game that is showcasing what you can do with them outside of just using them as mice. So I think it would be in their best interest to get that out there as soon as possible so that people can play it and other developers can play it and get inspired to do something with it, potentially. So that could come at any time. And then Career Air Riders, that is either going to be sooner than we expect and potentially an August release, or much later than we expect and a December release. I feel like it's either going to come faster or at the end of the year. Or it could be pushed into next year, who knows? But that leaves a lot of open space. That leaves November, and depending on Career Air Riders release, either August or December. They could not put anything else out and just go off of third-party support and Pokemon being a power force of just being Pokemon for the rest of the year. Not to mention, you would assume I would assume most, if not all, Switch 2 owners are going to have Mario Kart. Many are going to have it just through the bundle, but then anyone, and I realize this when listening to other podcasts, why some people might go for the standalone version instead of the bundle version is because there are still people who care about physical media. And if they care about physical media, they're not going to want the digital copy of the game included with the bundle. They're going to want a physical copy. And if that's the case, obviously you're going to save the $50 and then spend begrudgingly probably $80 for the physical version. But they are all going to buy. It's going to be close to a 1-to-1 attach rate, if not a 1-to-1 attach rate, because early adopters, what else are you going to play anyway, especially at launch? Then you would assume Donkey Kong Bonanza would sell quite well. And then Pokemon is Pokemon. Pokemon is also a cross-gen game. And I think Metro Prime 4 is also cross-gen. Career Riders, they haven't said, but I'm assuming it's just going to be... I'm assuming because it's been announced. I think anything announced now is Switch 2 only, moving forward. Unless it's some kind of collection of older games, which I don't know what they would put out. Well, this is what I was thinking. Part of my wishes and predictions. This is more of a wish than a prediction. What would be great for December? Put Career Riders out in August, and in December, put out the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD collection, or release them separately for $50 a piece. Really nickel and dime and make us pay out the wazoo for those games. Whatever, just make them available for fucking finally. But that is something I would love to see. And those would also be cross-gen, of course. There's no way those games would not be on Switch 1 as well as Switch 2. That is also, I think, right? The GameCube inclusion in NSO plus expansion pack, that subscription service, the $50 one, that is only on the Switch 2. I just realized I haven't thought about that, but I believe that is the case. That part of the service, which if true is kind of weird, because you don't have an instance where, well, I guess if you have Game Pass and you have an Xbox One, any Game Pass game that is series only, you can. So yeah, never mind. But I think that is the case, and that lends more credence to the idea that they would still put out the HD collection of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, because you have 150 million Switch users who can't play these GameCube games, so it means nothing. And also, I mean, that's part of the subscription. That's not something people are paying for. So, could we see that in December? Maybe. But maybe they also don't want to release it so soon after we're getting the GameCube editions. You could also put that out in the spring alongside Grand Theft Auto 6, because I don't think those two games are going to eat at each other at all. So that is a game that a re-release that I think could do just fine and won't be affected at all or very, very minutely by going out against Grand Theft Auto. So I could see that happening, and I would love to see that happen. That's not 2025, of course, but my big wish is still Mario, a new 3D mainline Mario platformer in November. Do I actually think that's going to happen? No. That's, again, another kind of wish, but it would be nice. I feel like there needs to be something. And even with Metroid Prime 4, even if that was a November, the thing about Metroid Prime 4 is that it's not a big franchise. This is probably going to be the best-selling Metroid, but it's still going to not underperform, but it's going to perform worse than almost every other Nintendo franchise. Big, long-running Nintendo franchise that is still active. So not F-Zero or what's the fox's name? Star Fox. Nothing like that, but amongst Zelda, Mario, Kirby, Luigi's Mansion, Pikmin, Splatoon, so on and so forth, it is the bottom of the barrel. Even though I think it's among the best in terms of the game quality. Also, to go back to Dragon Drive, I'm just so surprised that is a first-party Nintendo game because it lacks personality and color and everything I would associate with a Nintendo game. I would think that artistically, Dragon Drive would be more akin to something like Splatoon or ARMS. I need to drink something. But it is just this very bland, sterile aesthetic that really feels like a tech demo that it feels like a first draft tech demo, a beta of a tech demo, something that you would internally use to get ideas and test out the mechanics, see if the controls work, and then you would slap on that personality, that color. That's not the case here, and it just seems weird. But what else there is to expect, I think, as we have seen this week, in terms of pricing, it's still just an absolute mess because I think one or two judges shot down Trump's tariffs, but then another judge or an appeals court said they will stay in place for now while they are working out what's going on in these other courts because whatever. The tariff situation is just a constantly changing. Even in a single day, it changes multiple times where they say, okay, it's been shot down and refunds might be possible. And then I read another news story a few hours later. Actually, this other court, this appeals court said, no, they'll stay in place for now for these 180 days or something. And we'll see what happens there. Who's to say? But with stuff like that, it's impossible to really say what might change price-wise, because that's part of why I want to get a system at launch, is being worried that these tariffs will go into effect. They'll be higher than where they're at now. Who knows? And the prices will raise. But that may not end up being the case now. And I feel like if the tariffs actually do go away, the price hike on Xbox hardware was them jumping the gun a little bit too early. And it's going to be weird if they immediately drop the prices back down. And you would have to assume that, anyone who bought them who's buying Xboxes anyway? I'm the Xbox person, and I would tell no one to buy an Xbox because they're just, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. Just get out of this generation already. Please, I know the rumors say 2027, just make it to 2026. 25th anniversary, put out your new Xbox, put out the handheld, put out a Halo remake, celebrate 25 years of Xbox with a lot of shit. Do it. Try and get the new hardware to release alongside Grand Theft Auto 6 and say, this is the best way to play Grand Theft Auto 6. Because it's only going to be on consoles to launch, no PC. So literally, if you have the most powerful hardware out there, and you're able to say with complete accuracy, not even kind of like, oh, maybe not. They're kind of equal in their own ways. One's better in one way, one's better in this other way. Nope. This new Xbox is definitively the best way to play Grand Theft Auto 6. I think that's a pretty strong selling point to put out there, but that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. This is turning into Xbox predictions for next year. But I'm curious what Nintendo has up their sleeve for the rest of this year, because I just can't believe it's Pokemon for the fall and nothing else. So whether that is, again, finally seeing those Zelda HD games come out, whether bundled together or on their own or individually, or something else we don't even know about. There's got to be something. And Metro Prime 4 cannot be that game. They can't put that out in November and have that be their premiere November. Just that they're putting it out there to die if they do it. I feel like September is a good time for that game to come out as well, because maybe there's something big coming out that I'm unaware of. Borderlands might be, it's either September or October, but it's got to come out. Just be out. But yeah, I would love to hear what everyone else is thinking they might see from Nintendo for the rest of the year that we don't already know, that hasn't been concretely said, as, again, October for Pokemon, July for Donkey Kong, and obviously June for Mario Kart World. What people think Dragon Drive is going to come out at. Will Career Riders actually come out this year? Will Metro Prime 4 be an earlier release or a later release? When will we get this information as well? What I think is that while they are going to show up at Summer Game Fest, I don't think it's going to be anything new. It might just be an abbreviated version of the Switch 2 Direct from earlier in the year that just is giving you the highlights and basically being a launch trailer for the system. And then maybe late July, early August, we get a new Direct that, because I think they would want to wait until after Donkey Kong Bonanza, and with August not having anything in it just yet, you could have Dragon Drive Shadow Drop in that Direct, and then Metroid Prime 4 get its release date announced in September, so the following month. And Career Riders could be dated as well, and then maybe reveal the HD Zelda games or something along those lines for November, December, depending on when Career Riders ends up coming out and so on. But yeah, I feel like that could be a decent kind of idea of what the year has in store. Potentially, I'd love to hear again what others think. But that's enough about Nintendo. Let's get on to what I've been playing, starting with Blades of Fire. So, Blades of Fire, from the award-winning studio Mercury Steam, comes a new action adventure where you forge your own weapons and face fierce enemies in a unique combat system. Join Aaron Delera on his journey to find the real purpose of his fate. This is an action-adventure game with Souls-like elements to it. You don't have to get your souls back after dying, but the weapon you're using will have dropped with your corpse, so you have to go back and get it, and any damage it takes, it will retain. But I played about an hour of it, and I think it's okay. My issue with it is that there's a lot of thought that went into the forging system. So you start off with the story introduction, you run into this little fella, and I believe after the tutorial-ish area, the story revealed that my goal is to kill the queen, and I'm working my way towards it. And through that whole process, I found this anvil that I used to take me to this other realm. And there I'm able to forge weapons. And you can go back there. That works as kind of your bonfire, where anytime you find an anvil, you hammer it and you'll rest, regain your heals, your health. Enemies will respawn like they do in Souls games. And then you can go back to that other realm and forge new weapons and potentially repair your old ones. They have depending on how well you forge them, up to 4 repairs, full repairs. But through the process of forging them, you'll decide how you want them balanced, the size of the blade or the hammer, how long the shaft is, what type of handle you use, and all of these factor in how much stamina you have when using the weapon, how much damage they do, maybe their range, but there's a lot of thought that goes into that. And when you are forging it, in order to get additional repairs, you are following this kind of curved line and hammering these pieces that will make certain ones go raise and other ones go down, and you're trying to get it so that all these pieces align with this curved line. And it's a kind of interesting mechanic system, not explained the best, but you do all of that. And then when actually in the game, the combat feels way less thoughtful when in comparison to the actual act of crafting your weapons. So you spend all this time, you put a lot of thought into crafting your weapons, and then when you get into combat, it's very hack and slashy simple, just hack slash, roll out of the way, or dash out of the way. You have 2 weapons equipped. Well, maybe you can have more. I only have 2 weapons on me at the current time. I think maybe you can have 4 equipped at a time. But when you lock onto an enemy, you'll see them outlined in one of 3 colors: red, yellow, and green. Red means your weapon will do no damage to them because they have their weapon or their armor is designed to stop that type of weapon. Or yellow, kind of a mid thing, obviously, and then green, you'll do the ideal amount of damage. And with certain weapons like a blade, you can switch between stances so that you are in more of a stabbing one or a hacking and slashing one. And that could affect the kind of damage you do to an enemy. And that's kind of neat. But it still ends up being just this very hack and slashy type of gameplay that is a bit of a letdown when so much, after putting so much thought into my initial weapons and spending the time to craft them and then hammer them to the best of my ability to get 3 repairs out of it, it felt very shallow in comparison. The bit I played, though, what I found very lacking is the level design, at least early on. It's a bit confusing. It seems overly complicated in many ways, where it didn't give me the same kind of sense of progression and excitement, achievement upon finding or opening up a new pathway that I get in a lot of Souls games, the Souls games specifically in particular. But then also in combat, I fought a kind of mini boss, a troll, and I kept dying because every time I would knock its health down, it would get into this kind of weakened stance where I could initiate a type of special attack on it to get rid of that health bar. But if I took too long, they would petrify and turn to stone and then regain their health. And in my 5 encounters with them, only one time or maybe twice was able to initiate that weaken attack on them, despite doing nothing different in those 2 instances than in the other ones. So it just seemed, I don't understand what I was doing wrong, or what I was doing, conversely, what I was doing right, so that there wasn't a clear understanding to me what the difference was. And that frustrated the hell out of me to the point where I said, with the shallowness of the combat overall, my not loving the level design early on, and then this kind of weird issue, I don't feel the drive to keep playing it. It doesn't look too bad. It has, combat-wise, what I would compare it to, but a little bit more complicated, because the game I'm about to compare it to was less thoughtful, except that it had a magic system. So they're a bit different, but both in terms of looks and kind of vibe and feel, it most reminds me of Kingdoms of Amalur, but I like Kingdoms of Amalur more. Except this is Blaze of Fire is also a much more linear type of game. Yeah, I wasn't jiving with it. I might go back to it at some point after a few updates or so, because I think there's potential there, but not making the best first impression. Then we have Maniac. This is a game I was very excited to check out. Welcome to Maniac, where chaos is just waiting to be unleashed. Maniac is a throwback to times of the original GTAs of the world in which mayhem reigned supreme. With an arsenal of unlockable characters, weapons, and an ever-changing world, try not to get busted. GTA meets Vampire Survivors is what this game calls itself to be, says it is. And that's exactly what it is. This is a Survivors-like that is themed around classic Grand Theft Auto games of the old... I mean, they were also on PlayStation 1 as well, but the old top-down ones. So Grand Theft Auto 1, London 1969, and 2, as well as Chinatown Wars, but think more 1 through 2. And I played maybe an hour or two of it and had a really good time with it. It has... One of the things I think it has, in addition to GTA feels, is general feels of the original Postal game. So I think anyone who knows or thinks of Postal now thinks of Postal 2 onward, where Postal 2 moved to first person and much more crass, crude, politically incorrect, objectionable humor. Very not... South Park feels like Bluey in comparison. I don't know how else you'd put it. But the original was this isometric type of just create mayhem. There might have been a school level or either school DLC or maybe a modded school level that I played. But it was very much so kind of also in that state of emergency space of just create mayhem and kill everything. I remember using the napalm a lot in that, and I really enjoy that original Postal game for what it is. And this has a bit of that feel to it, because to unlock some of the characters, like the clown, who I believe is on the key art, you have to kill in one run 20 children. And then for another character to unlock them, you have to kill like 30 mothers in their strollers. So it's not pulling any punches in that sense. And that may be a turnoff to some, but it is a more cartoony aesthetic, and you don't really... It's not like you see the kids and they look like kids. They're just a specific type of sprite that doesn't even seem smaller than adult sprites. I can't speak to what the 7-Ups look like, but or the Serum Mists. But in terms of the actual gameplay, I really like it because it does embrace that classic GTA vibe in that, one, you can control it like a twin stick shooter so that you only attack when you press the attack button and aim where you're aiming, manually aim, or you can have it auto attack but you manually aim, or have it do everything on its own and you're just controlling the character. But in addition to doing what you usually do in a Survivors like, which is just move the character around and have them attack on their own, you can do other GTA things, specifically like stealing cars and driving around. And the driving feels okay. It feels reminiscent of those games where the driving didn't feel that the best in there. But I didn't try this if you did just want to explore the world, you could turn off the auto attacking and auto aiming and then just take a car and drive around or just walk around yourself. And I find something very neat about that. And I think creating a survivor's like in this setting is something I haven't seen before. And adding those additional gameplay elements on top of it is cool. In order to get more health for your character, they don't just randomly drop. They are given to you whenever you destroy an ambulance or a fire truck. Obviously, it makes sense. And the way you upgrade your character is just, you don't even have to collect things. You collect money that you can use for permanent upgrades, but you go around, and I think they're in the guise of kind of like a drug dealer. So you just keep finding these different drug dealers. You keep going to them to upgrade your character and get certain stat boosts or new weapons. And I think it's cool. I like it. It feels relatively good. I think it looks pretty good. The explosions in particular, and there are a lot of explosions, look very nice. It makes me long for those days of the classic GTA games, and I wish we could get more of those. I really want to play. I have a code for it. I haven't checked it out yet, but I want to check out the Precinct, which I think is maybe in that gameplay vein. And then I know we've had some in the past. I believe that American Fugitive was one such game. There was that medieval type one with the dude with the shaved head on the key art. I forget what it's called, but I played a little bit of that. And going further back, we had Retro City Rampage. But I would love to see more stuff like this in the space. And not just Survivor's Life, but actual traditional GTA games. Because I at least have nostalgia for them. I like them. I would still enjoy them going back to at least Grand Theft Auto 2. If nothing else, I would just love it if Rockstar would port Chinatown Wars, which was an excellent game, to consoles and PC. But yeah, Maniac, I recommend it. I dug it. I like it. Then we have, what is this? Get back here. We have Copycat. Copycat is a narrative-driven indie game about a pet who learns to deal with abandonment and a human forced to surrender. Together, two souls go on a journey to discover the meaning of family and home. The game's colorful visuals delight the senses while exploring dark thematic depths. Journey on an emotional roller coaster that pulls at the heartstrings and reminds you how it feels to be left behind. This is a game I should love, because I don't think you're going to find a bigger lover of cats than me. I adore them. If you don't already know, I have tattooed across my collarbone, my cat's name, who passed many, many years ago at this point, Pokey. I got his name tattooed across my collarbone in Braille. It's my first ever tattoo. I love him dearly. He means so much to me. He is, don't need to get into the story, but very much so probably a reason why I am still here on this planet. So he's very special to me, and if you like any of the stuff I do, you should like him too. But I should love this game because it has this solid story so far of what I've experienced, where you have this cat who is kind of used to being thrown aside and ignored. People get them, and then after a short period of time, they get tired of them, and they eventually go back to the adoption center and rinse and repeat. So they don't really trust humans, and they feel like a wildcat. They want to be a wildcat, like tigers and all that. And then you have this older woman, this Australian woman, who, I don't know, I'm assuming the whole game takes place in Australia. The developer is probably Australian. But you have this older lady who just got out of the hospital, and her last cat ran away. And she got this new cat as a kind of replacement, because she doesn't want to be alone. Her husband passed away at some point ago. Her daughter keeps pestering her about putting her in a home. She thinks that'll be better for her. And it's about these two people who are this older woman and this cat who find companionship through each other and learn and so on. The problem with the game, though, is that from what I've played so far, basically about an hour, I don't see any reason why it is a game. The gameplay that is there is very, very bare bones. There is a fair amount of the illusion of choice, and sometimes instances where there is no choice. It's just here, press this button. We're putting this button on the screen. You gotta press it. There's not even two different choices that don't even really matter, or two choices that you don't want to do either of, but you have to pick one of them. Sometimes it's just the one choice. And then other times you're going off and doing things like getting food for your bowl, and it's just the most basic whatever, nothing gameplay. And every single time I was put into control, I found nothing. I didn't feel like I was gaining anything from it, or that it added to the story or immersed me more in it, got me to feel more connected to these characters. It did nothing of that. So as much as I think the story they're telling is a worthy one, and so far it's a decent story, well voiced, it just doesn't give me any. There's just no reason to play it. Make this a short movie. Give me a 15-minute short movie as opposed to this where I'm playing and getting nothing out of it. Because I believe it's a fairly short game as well, from what I've read. But yeah, I also don't understand the title, why it's called Copycat. That makes me think, oh, it's going to be this game where there's kind of puzzle elements and you're doing something and copying. I don't know. But my only assumption for the name is that the cat will watch, because the fucking older woman just leaves big cat documentaries, wild cat documentaries on the TV 24/7 apparently. And your cat, the cat you play as, will watch a video and see, oh, look, there's a tiger scratching a tree there. Well, I'm going to scratch this ottoman here because I need to copy that larger cat. Copycat? I'm assuming that's, if it's not that, I have no idea why it's called Copycat. But yeah, I think for all the good in it, the bad that's there, which is the gameplay. Not that it's bad, it's just it's nothing. It's just a waste. It takes away. It just makes it so that why is this a game and not just a short story, a short film with something else? So yeah, it's Copycat. And then the last game is Deep Nightmare. Deep Nightmare is a 2D top-down shooter. A little boy didn't listen to his mother's warnings that eating too much at night would cause nightmares, and now he must face hordes of monsters and defeat the nightmare bosses to escape. This is, as it says, a twin-stick shooter where you are in your nightmares and you are facing off enemies in a very mini-clip flash game type of look, reminiscent of The Binding of Isaac, or what is that name of the studio that does Alien Hominid and all those games. It's very much in that vein visually, and it feels a lot like The Binding of Isaac in that it is all top-down. However, instead of moving room to room in that type of rogue-like system, you are just staying in a singular room, taking on waves of enemies until reaching a boss or a treasure chest, and then getting eventually to a larger boss and just doing this for it. It is fine, but I don't know. I had a good enough time with it, but I wasn't drawn to keep playing it. When I was playing, I was like, yeah, this is fine. This is getting the job done, but the game doesn't feel that great. The enemies I was fighting, and I was just fighting the same enemies over and over again in the bit I played, they weren't the coolest, and the weapons were pretty standard. I don't know. it very much so felt like a Flash game, a game you would go to a browser, you play it and you have a good enough time in that sense, but you take that and put it onto your big screen TV, you play with a controller, and you kind of want maybe a little bit more. Because there's also, with the Binding of Isaac, at least there is a sense of a better sense of progression, because you are getting a progression where you are going through these waves, and when you complete a run, which is very short, maybe 3 to 4 waves before fighting a boss or getting that treasure chest, and then you'll get a little thing that'll let you move on to the next stage until you defeat the big boss of that area, and then you'll go on to the second level of the Nightmare Realm, and so on and so forth. It just doesn't feel like, it just doesn't feel the same. I don't know. It's fine. It's, I think, $10. So it's not a terribly expensive game. And I think if you really like Binding of Isaac, you might just like it for similar vibes and gameplay-ish. But I think it's the kind of game where you could wait for it to drop down a little bit, and then if this was on sale for $5, for instance, I think, sure, you'll have a very good time with it. $10 is, I think the value is there for $10. It's just a matter of whether or not you would enjoy the game. And it's loop. Because the content is there. It's just a matter of it not being the most exciting thing. That is, again, Deep, Deep Nightmare. And the nightmare of this podcast, of this episode, is finally over. And I record a little bit later, so I want to get it done and render it out and then upload it in time. So that will do it for this here episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Once again, I am Mark Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to a monthly Q&A along with I lost a little bit in the train of thought right there. Monthly Q&A, yes, but also a private Discord channel along with some fancy Discord roles and the occasional drop on the Patreon here or there depending on your tier. Or you could just support me to support me if that is your fancy. That is, again, patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is the letter P, the letter X, sausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. But for now, adios, arrivederci. Bye.